Kaspa is your improved Bitcoin for all intents and purposes. It's just better Bitcoin. It's the fastest proof of work. So bringing EVM on top of it actually combines both best of both worlds, and we're still doing it.
What everyone in the ecosystem needs to know is that Egra supports and contributes to Kaspa. It's not parasitic. So I don't even think Pavel's fully aware of this, to be quite frank. I'm telling him for the first time on this podcast, but I've got active conversations.
Supported by Egra Labs, atomic programmability on a Kaspa block DAG.
Cascade. Use your Kaspa without selling it.
Pavel, I was going through our first discussion, right? I think we had our first discussion was in February last year. I don't know if you remember that. At that time, I think no one even had heard of Egra Labs, and I had short hair. And obviously, since then, you guys have just launched your mainnet. Kudos to you, Dennis, Mike, Zach, and the rest of the team. You know, where are you guys at now?
Yeah, 1 year, unbelievable. Like it's 5 years in crypto, dog years, like crazy. Yeah, since then lots happened. Like we launched DevNet, testnet, closed mainnet, test mainnet, which which state we reset. But now we have mainnet, which is in soft launch also.
Yeah.
It's not public mainnet, but it's very close, and we're going to launch our first production-ready protocol on Igra mainnet 26th of March. So yeah.
I've sat down with Mike, Zach. I've sat down with yourself, Dennis, and obviously we have Ashton here, right? So Ashton, quickly, what's your role at Igra? And other thing I wanted to ask you is sort of how you're managing Nacho and now obviously being part of Igra.
Yeah, so it's a lot for sure, but my role at Egra is leading business development and ecosystem growth. So, I've been a recruiter in my Web 2, normal life for many years. And it's basically that, right? I'm recruiting builders, recruiting community members, recruiting partners, and trying to move the network forward through meaningful partnerships. So I've been doing this role since start of 2026, and I balance the time between a couple things so that I can impact the things I care about.
Right. And any pushback you've had from Nacho community? It's decentralized community, right? But obviously people have soft spot if someone leaves like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had questions for sure, but no negative feedback. We always had the approach of being honest and transparent from the beginning. And I just was. I told them before, we ever announced anything, told everyone what to expect. And I think most people see it as a positive because it brings a lot of the ecosystem closer. And we may even talk about a partnership in this interview that is proof of that.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, all right, guys, I've got some topics that I want to get into today, right? And some of them are spicy topics, right? So I'll just mention some of the things we're going to go over. So I want to discuss Igra mainnet, right? I want to talk about Igra ecosystem. I want to talk about Igra's upcoming token auction. And then I want to talk about, really the role of Igra within the Kaspa broader ecosystem, right? So those are the 4 things that I'm really looking forward to discussing. But why don't we start with a very simple question, right? Which is, how do you guys define Igra today?
Yeah, I can start because I'm also very curious, like what's the Ashton take on this? My take didn't change much. It's expanded, but we started with idea to combine flexibility and expressiveness of Ethereum with the security of Bitcoin. So Kaspa is your improved Bitcoin for all intents and purposes. It's just better Bitcoin. It's the fastest proof of work in the world. So bringing EVM on top of it actually combines both best of both worlds, and we're still doing it. This thesis expanded a little bit, but I think we'll get to this to expanded thesis later if we have time. But I think what we have on now is enough.
I think Pavel hit the nail on the head. Igra is EVM compatibility secured by Bitcoin grade security, right? And it's one of the only truly based rollups that we've seen. So I think we don't talk about that enough in the ecosystem about the nature of based versus optimistic rollups, and that's of critical importance because what everyone in the ecosystem needs to know is that Egra supports and contributes to Kaspa. It's not parasitic. So I think it's one of the most genuine L2s.
All right. So guys, you've just done your mainnet launch, right? Is it mainnet, or you're saying soft mainnet? How do you define mainnet?
It's a it's a mainnet with some meaningful restrictions. Like, we encourage people not to put any liquidity on this just yet until we prove it with our own deployment. Not our own deployment. The deployment will be done by our partners, but we use this opportunity to actually like make beta testing of the whole infrastructure.
I get it. So the Genesis block was mined on the 25th of February, right? And that was
25th, yes.
25th of February, right? This is following the Galleon closed mainnet, right? So if I'm pronouncing it right. So how's everything been since the Genesis block was mined?
I'm not gonna vote. It's all working smoothly. No incidents when we're testing it. Things coming in order. Partners deploying, configuring their things. Like, we'll get to this, I think, a bit later. Who is deploying what? But yeah, experience is really, really good. And given how complex the Genesis system architecture is, I think that's a great achievement. Like, super proud of the team. We have this, you have massive amount of data actually packed into one hash. So we have cryptographic proof of several contracts being deployed and configured in exactly the right way. So whoever wants, they can just make sure that these contracts were deployed in exactly the right sequence with exactly the right configuration, just by very small cryptographic data essentially available on chain in the Genesis block. That's amazing. It's it's one off event. It's not that every day you can launch the new blockchain with the new Genesis block and everything else. So yeah, it's just that I don't have enough champagne just to celebrate it, and also I want to hold until we really see it performing under the load with real things. But yeah, we have a very high confidence, to put it mildly.
Yeah, and it seems like partners are sharing the same thing, right? I mean, from a speed perspective, reliability, I mean, we're seeing it throughout, the DeFi partners that are building already.
So let's quickly talk about a couple of things on the decentralization front. And then we'll move on to the exciting stuff, ecosystem part, and rest of the things I've got planned, as I've mentioned. So let's quickly discuss, how many like node runners you have now. I remember last time we spoke in September, October, you were talking to 5 or 6 people that were interested. So what's happening now on the mainnet? How many people are you running the nodes?
As we speak, we have 7 external nodes and something like 6 internal.
Mm-hmm.
But this is ramping up. Like, we have essentially 15 people waiting for the final setup on the mainnet, because we also want to do it in phased way, like a staged approach. I think we also need to kind of reiterate this. It's like one of the most important fundamental properties of our network. Like, we're building decentralized system. Like, people often misunderstand like what's exactly decentralized means for a specific system. In our case, it means that anyone can run a node, anyone can prove state of Igra directly using layer 1 without any intermediaries. Directly. That's very important. That's what base rollup means. It means all our sequencing happens on layer 1. So if you have a layer 1, you can check all the transactions which happened on layer 1, and then you can see exactly the same transactions happen on Igra. Run no new transactions. We're not suppressing transactions, and even if one of the node decide to suppress transactions, other node can send them directly, and then it's impossible to stop. That's censorship exists. Decentralized property we want to keep in the core of the protocol. It's also important that nodes will be available and accessible for people. So current setup has mid-tier requirement for the node. And Ashton will get into this, I think, because he's dealing with this on daily basis. And we want to even reduce these requirements in the future. And this is one of the reasons why we have this attesting protocol, to actually make sure that anyone can run a node even on home toaster on or watch. Maybe Ashton can give you some details about how specific. Yeah.
Yeah, did you say a home toaster and a watch?
Yes. I mean,
Ultralight node.
everything's ultralight node should run on mobile. That's my goal.
Ashton, like they're wanting to set up a node. What is the thing you tell them, and what is the requirement for someone to run a node?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is really discussing the potential for different types of nodes. And this is kind of what Pavel is alluding to. So everything right now is focused on full nodes, which means they're running the entire chain history. They're actually running a node that has a Kaspa node embedded. So, running an Egra full node means you're contributing to both the layer 2 and the layer 1. And that's what enables people to attest to transactions and actually prove that these things happened. And those kind of empower the light and ultralight nodes that we're talking about. So the first thing I do is talk about those options, whether they're interested in becoming an attester and actually staking tokens and gaining rewards from that. And in terms of resource requirements, they are high for a node, but they're not astronomical. It's not prohibitively high for most people who are interested in staking like this. So you're basically looking at either an ARM or, x86 machine that has 32 gigs of RAM and 2 to 3 terabytes of storage. So, in a good VPS, if you're very, prudent and you're doing kind of discount shopping, trying to find your best price, I mean, you're looking at less than 40 euros per month for one of these machines. So if you are going through and attesting, you're paying for that pretty easily at that price point. But that's why I think the node count's exciting, because, having 15 plus today with only a couple weeks into mainnet, once we have this attester protocol completely running and people can set up light and ultra light nodes on their toaster, like we're talking about, I mean, that number is just going to skyrocket, right? So I think that's the exciting part. Those two don't have those same massive high requirements.
Right. I think you've touched upon attesters. I want to get into attesters in a second. What do you really think it's possible to run a node on your watch?
Yeah, absolutely. The ultralight node should be like super modest in terms of RAM and storage. It will have reduced security assumptions comparing to the full node.
Trust model.
Trust models. So it will be different. It will have different use cases, but for most retail users, that's more than enough, and it will still contribute to the security and decentralization of the system.
Right. So when do you think it's possible for me to run a node on my watch?
Watch the space.
I don't think it's that far out, to be honest. I mean, we need to have attesters turned on fully. And I think probably we're waiting on one more DAO governance proposal to pass to really enable that full system.
Another 2 years.
2.
Yeah.
Got it. 2. But yeah, once we've got those passed through the DAO and the actual attesters running, I mean, this is turnkey. These Docker containers already run on ARM-based CPUs. So, your mobile machines, your watches, your things like this, they're set up already for this if people want it.
That's cool. So now let's talk about the other side of the equation, which is the security side of things with attesters, right? So that's the key piece of infrastructure for Igra. Now, attesters are a subset of nodes, right? So they are node runners, but small subset. They have to stake their tokens, Igra token, right? So perhaps let's start with that, right? What makes these attesters unique, and how many are there? I guess if you want to just tell us the numbers, how many attesters you already spoken to?
It's roughly matching the number we just mentioned. Mostly all of the full nodes currently, they also will become attesters. They're interested in participation. Because if you have this hardware and if you have some Igra, why don't you?
Yeah, it's kind of no-brainer at that point. You've already got the VPS, you've already got the Igra token, just, run the package and get rewarded.
I guess that's where I was getting to, is like, if it's a subset of node runners, then why wouldn't you just be a tester and earn something while at the same time, right? So it makes sense. So what is the minimum requirement, Igra staking requirement for being an attester?
400,000 Igra tokens.
400,000 Igra tokens, right?
Yes.
And and I guess I'm sure. I mean, it's not something I want to focus on today, but perhaps what sort of incentives they have.
We can split. Ashton can tell you about the earnings. I will tell you about the risks.
Please,
Okay.
yeah, I think it's important to have both.
Yeah, so if we start with earnings, you're paid out in both ICAS, the native gas token or coin that is 1-to-1 with Kaspa on the layer 1, as well as Egra token, and these come on a per attestation basis. So it's very similar to the idea of staking in Ethereum or one of these proof of stake chains, right? I mean, as you stake and you help create these blocks, or in our case, these attestations, you're paid these rewards. So if I understand 100% correct, I think the ICAS is actually from gas fees that are processed on the layer 2 and the network itself, right? So instead of retaining any margin on gas fees for the network itself, it's given to the node operators, to the attesters that are making all this possible. And the Egra tokens are emission schedule based predominantly.
Right. I see. What are the risks? But before we get to the risks, though, so I think Ashton, you mentioned they are similar to Ethereum validators, but different, right? Could you please expand that just so that we can have some context how attesters are different?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in an Ethereum's case, this is certainly high level. I'm not an expert tech guy, but in Ethereum's case, you're helping build blocks itself, right? So you're watching a mempool and sequencing transactions, and that is really the staking game in proof of stake networks. In a base rollup like Egra, what we're doing is actually overcoming the pruning that Kaspa nodes naturally go through. We're, as an attester, we're watching the Kaspa layer 1 network and saying, hey, I saw A, B, and C transaction happen. Let me provide proof to this smart contract on the layer 2, so that a light or ultralight node in the future can simply go to that contract, read the log history, and not need to sync an entire Kaspa archival node and re-index all those transactions. So very similar, and I think economics and maybe the social layer of how this operates, but what it's actually doing is different and far more detailed because it's a base rollup.
Yeah. No, I think what you said is perfect, and I think it highlights the differences, but also highlights that there are similarities with the way things are, right? Attestation is perhaps the subset of validators' job, right? Because validators do attest as well, but very one part of it, a bigger part is perhaps the block the proposing of the blocks itself, and other things as you highlighted.
That's correct. That's correct.
What are the issues and what are the risks, Pavel, being a tester?
They're not issues. They're the part of the protocol of the whole incentive design. It's stake in the game, right? It's skin in the game. It's called staking for a reason. So you have to have something to lose if you want to secure decentralized system. So if you do something funny, if you miss your attestation, if you try to fake state, then there are penalties. So your stake will be slashed, or it can be taken by entities called challengers. And this is actually the part of the protocol we're not explaining enough, I think. We have so many things. This system is massive, but it's also cool. So in short, challenger is can be anyone who builds small service, who watch the state of Igra, also watch the layer 1, and then see that one of the attesters actually made wrong attestation. And then this challenger can post cryptographic proof of that and be rewarded in a permissionless way. It just posts this transaction into the smart contract on Igra, and then this contract slash the stake of the misbehaving attester, and then challenger just earn from this. So this is actually one of the extreme of the income that's which is there. We're debating if we should write our own challenger and then give it to people. I think it makes sense that people just do it because protocol is there, everything is there. Most of the things like in the open, so they can build it. If they want our help, they can come to us building. But yeah, we focus to make sure that core functionality is working. But maybe we can get to this too, and then just create challengers, because it's also very important part of the whole network health.
Yeah, I guess on Ethereum front, Ethereum has very limited slashes. Now, I don't know the reasons, but do you really expect these challenges to be active and obviously slashing the testers if they're trying to obviously game the system?
It is always happens with when liquidity grows. Like
Mhm.
we aim for, like this year, we aim for some modest TVL, like up to 50 mil. But then even on this level, I think you will see that people will try to game the system. And again, we cannot control this. It's a permissionless system, so people may and will try to put money on it. And sometimes people don't understand exactly what they're doing. Like we see earlier today, this incident with Avi, when someone, I think, swapped like 50 mil worth of Avi for like $30,000. That way around, they actually got Avi of worth 30,000 instead of 50 mil. So unfortunately, in our world, these things happen. So we can see massive TVL coming, and then if it's not secure enough, if we don't have like all parts of this equation, both sides, incentives and penalties, then yeah, the system will be asymmetric.
Yeah. No, I think it's good to obviously highlight these bits again and again to people, right? Of course, everyone just focuses on the money making part, but perhaps they forget the challenges, they forget the risks that comes with it, and even the higher level of risk, right? Like who's actually trying to compete with you? You don't know on the other side. So it's obviously good from my perspective to constantly discuss these things. So let's shift gears here a little bit, right? So let's talk about something very exciting, which is the ecosystem itself, right? So what's happening? It's perhaps part that Ashton, where you spend most of your time on, right? What's happening on the Igra builder side? I saw some post somewhere that there are 15 builders committed to Igra. So is that the right number? Who are they? I can only count 5 or 6 when I was trying to count. So why don't you take us through what's happening on that front?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you everyone's information that they haven't released yet, but I can tell you that number's accurate. And I'm talking to these guys every day. So I mean, from DEXs that are Uniswap V2, V3, and V4 clones are all happening. Lending and borrowing protocols, which are like Aave, V3 clone style. We see an entire NFT marketplace that's being built that hasn't been talked about much in the ecosystem.
I'm gonna stop you there. Sorry. Oh, I was going to say I'm gonna stop.
And you did. And you did.
That's crazy.
Oh my.
A few moments later.
Ashton, I was going to stop you there when you just disappeared. So I was going to say,
magic.
Yes, exactly. I did it, made it happen. So I was going to say, I can count few, right? And you've mentioned few names that you cannot disclose, but you cannot come to XXIM and not disclose things. What's the point of being? So tell me, what can you disclose here? I can only come up with, as I said, ZealotSwap, Cascad, Kaspa.com, Kaspa Finance, Forward Finance, Kaspa Cat Bridge, right? I'm assuming this is part of it. That's it. I can only think of 6.
Well, you've got
wallets. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say you've got at least 5 or 6 wallets right off the top that have already supported.
I see.
And are integrating, right? And they're integrating functionality that is an embedded good user experience. It's not just simply, transacting back and forth, right? They're integrating with, and I think we didn't even mention ZAP protocol, Zealous Auctions, which is going to be the first big one, right? Uniswap CCA stuff. Another huge one that we have talked about publicly is Hyperlane, where we're integrating two-way bridges from most EVM chains. So, right off the bat, we'll see things like USDC, USDT, wrapped Ethereum, wrapped Bitcoin, ST Ethereum, right? The staked Ethereum that's from Lido, and a number of these other assets that will be, able to bring liquidity and interesting use cases to Egra. I think when people, I get most excited about the conversations I have with builders where they start trying to stack yield or potential yield on these assets, right? If you're staking ETH on ETH mainnet and then you're bridging over ST ETH and then using that as collateral on Cascade to take a loan, right? You've got some unique opportunities, I think, here.
Right.
So yeah, I think we got pretty close to doubling your number while still respecting some of these teams. But I will add one more that's really cool is called Hashlock. They're doing atomic swaps between this network and another.
Strong finance. Yeah.
Yes,
that's,
exactly.
That should be amazing. Should be amazing protocol. Like it's really had this cypherpunk value.
So I didn't hear the name. Just before you tell me the name, I forgot obviously wallets. I forgot C-Swap. I think I've spoken to those guys. I don't know they are in the mix or not.
No, unfortunately, they in dormant mode right now. So C-Swap we don't count. You should also count both. You should count Explorer, which is DAXCAN.
Oh, DAXCAN. I see.
That's
yes.
that's an amazing project. Really,
Vivo guys, right? Yeah, Andrew there is.
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
Yeah.
And also,
and they did a great job. Beautiful.
I root in a lot for Aporia for the perps.
Aporia, yes.
Oh yes.
Aporia here with the order book decks.
It's a hard stunt to pull. Really, like to get perps right, especially like these days when you have so many different examples and flavors. But yeah, I'm sure they will. Yeah, they will be there as well. I know they build them, but yeah, it's all question. You know, it's 10% code and then 90% everything else, like product market fit, community management, operations. Yeah. So, guys, we love you.
No, this is beautiful. I mean, we're discussing almost entire ecosystem here, right? That's built on Kaspa right now. And the names, but quickly, what was the company you mentioned?
Are you talking about the atomic swaps that we mentioned?
Atomic swaps, yeah. What was the name of them?
Yeah, the new name's Hashlock. The old they just recently got acquired. What was the old one, Pavel?
The old one was Stroem Finance, STROEM Finance, and it was made by one of the Kaspa core team members. Essentially, it's not a secret. I think this guy is amazing. Like really, I'm following his work really close. He's actually behind the zero knowledge opcode implementation. So it was some really serious research and implementation done by him. So yeah, I wasn't surprised that he also built this atomic swap protocol and then gave it away just like that.
Just gave it away, right? Did you say sold, right? So sold is not giving it away.
But I think I'm still a little bit like I really wanted to work. It's not like I don't want to work to the new team. New team is amazing as well. I actually know them. It's from some previous projects. Like 2 projects ago, I think we were in touch. But still, Alex, I really looked forward to to pick up his brain because this guy is amazing. Like, sorry, I have a thing for talented engineers. This is why I'm in Kaspa community.
Yeah. Beautiful. So let's quickly talk about Hyperlane, right? It's important, I think, from a liquidity perspective. It's important from stablecoins perspective, which obviously leads to liquidity. So what's happening on that front, right? Because I had spoken to Kaspa finance guys, right? They already done Kaspa bridge, I believe. So what is going to be different here with your upcoming Hyperlane infrastructure for bringing, obviously, interoperability?
Yeah, I think the number one difference is the validator set. So we went through and chose the kind of as a service model that Hyperlane offers, right? So it means that we've got the Hyperlane team involved directly. We're running on their infrastructure. We're not just taking open source code and trying to rebuild the wheel from the ground up ourselves.
Makes sense.
But it's a collaborative effort, right? So we've got all the Hyperlane infrastructure. We've got the kind of tried and true stuff that's moved billions of dollars in assets already. But we're able to contribute with additional validator nodes ourselves and participate in this to ensure that we've got, a vested interest in everything that's moving. And, we're doing what we can to kind of, force protect the community as well. But it also means that reach is more, right? I mean, we'll see Egra listed in the actual Nexus UI that Hyperlane manages. So we'll get more eyes, more adoption, more interest, people who just happen across the Nexus UI because they want to move, USDT from base to Ethereum. will happen to see that new network in the list and be able to go do research and say, maybe I should move it to the first, EVM based rollup instead of Coinbase's thing.
Right. I see. That's a big difference. And I think, yeah, makes sense. That leads me to my next part, which is this team called IgraWays. I've heard the name a couple of times, but never had the chance to talk to them. They were building one of the bridges for you guys, right? We spoke about them a while back. Are they still there in the mix, or?
Haven't heard from them for a while. So currently, like it's, I work on assumption that they decided to sit this one out, but yeah, they really enjoyed working with them. Super diligent, active, and smart team. So I really hope they will come back, because Igra and Kaspa is a blue ocean still. There are so many things you can build, and yeah, to be first to the market. So it's I think it makes a lot of sense. So guys, if you listen to this, come back. Mainnet is there.
You need to look straight into the camera, Pavel.
I try to find who to look at, Ashton, you or camera, because I hate looking at myself.
I see. You look straight into the camera to tell Debbie to come back.
Debbie, come back. Come back. Also, yeah, we can touch, by the way, the hackathon later, because I had the honor to be on the judge panel for this, and yeah, it was also very important experience in terms of ecosystem. Some thoughts about that, but yeah, maybe later.
You know how important it is to have a very sort of active ecosystem, because that's really what's going to drive the adoption, right? A couple of themes that I've seen missing, right? So far I haven't seen any RWA builders, right? Real world application builders. We haven't seen any games builders, right? We haven't also seen anything around stablecoins. There are programmable stablecoin people are trying to build something in that space. Those are the three sort of big themes which I thought there's a lot of focus on messaging. There's a lot of on the layer one. There's a lot of focus on obviously DeFi side. But those were the three areas I thought we haven't seen anyone.
Yeah. So my experience is lots of talent out there, like people really creative and able. Several projects stood out. One of them is actually game, and another is game infrastructure. I like this a lot. The interesting thing is, it's expected, but still, like you can see that people struggle to build anything truly decentralized on layer one. So they have to compromise for any kind of some kind of centralized solution, being the storage or smart contract logic, or just execution logic which they put elsewhere. So this is showing, but then this is also it's a good news for smart contract ecosystem on Kaspa. It means like there are at least several teams which able to build something which will be truly decentralized with at least with our protocol for sure. Like we can promise them that. So yeah, there are some gamins, RWA and programmable stable coins. It's hard to build because of legal side of things. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
You have to have lawyer in your team, and these people normally they don't like hackathons. They prefer being paid handsomely. Instead of just that's building code. So that's why I haven't seen, I think, anything like that. But then I'm curious why DePIN builders not come forward, because the DePIN is still super valid use case for both, by the way, layer one and layer two. Layer one for sure, because Kaspa is super fast and you have a payload and you can put whatever you like on your own layer one without it. You don't have any complex logic around that. So yeah, I think this is overlooked. Like this is underdeveloped. But this, So this is my thoughts. We have talent. I really hope that these people, and I will make every effort to lure these people, like lure the hackathon participants into the Igra ecosystem. It's it's a no-brainer. But then it shows that what we're building actually makes sense, and that's exciting. I think this actually one person built a file transfer on Kaspa layer 1, which has some impediments, some limitations, but overall, like great engineering, and using layer 1 natively just for transferring files is super creative, like from code perspective.
So file transfer, anything else stood out to you before we move on to, I really want to focus on Igra token and all this amazing stuff that's coming up with ZealSwap. So anything on the ecosystem, hackathon or outside of that, we haven't discussed?
I think there are many brilliant projects which I can talk about, but I think it's it's a topic for another for the whole podcast. Actually, we should do just another podcast just focusing solely on ecosystem with ecosystem highlights and just speaking only about that.
I was just gonna add on the fact that it would line up well with doing our own dedicated hackathon. We've talked to these guys that ran the Kaspa one, and I've been deep in a conversation with, I think his name's Merlin, and we want to run one shortly after launch as well. So maybe this makes sense to dive in deep when we've got those dedicated Egra builders.
Yeah.
Kinesis. That's I tried to remember. Kinesis. That's the game engine from hackathon which stood out.
Kinesis, okay.
Yeah, Kinesis was like really excellent project. Yes.
Beautiful. All right, let's move forward to our this next part of our discussion, which is the Igra token itself, right? So lots happening that front, and you guys got some big news, right? So what's happening with ZealSwap? Tell me simply, very simple English. What are you guys doing with your own token?
I will give it to Ashton. Like his English is both not so simple but excellent. I enjoy it a lot.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. So in just straightforward, simple terms, ZealSwap is creating ZAP, the Zealous Auctions Protocol is the acronym, and it is a clone of Uniswap's CCA, so continuous clearing auctions. And it's a new novel approach to token launches and token distributions that has proved really, really successful for two projects. Aztec Network is a privacy layer on Ethereum that used CCA for their launch. I think the other is called Zama. I haven't done as much research into that one, but essentially it's just an easy way to create on-chain price discovery where the demand of the market actually drives the clearing price of the auction itself, and it keeps distribution of the token fair during that. So you're not seeing a price spike just because you got there early. You're seeing true, genuine price discovery on chain over a long period of time.
Right. It was brilliantly explained, Ashton. It was really good. I will take a step forward and I'll say, let's try to simplify it even further. Let me take a step back, perhaps, right? So 10 billion is the total supply of Igra token. You are, through this ZAB process, you're going to be auctioning 500 million tokens of Igra. So that's the step one.
Up to 500.
Yeah.
Up to 500 million Igra tokens will be auctioned through this ZAB process, right? So that's the step one, right? So instead of selling directly, you're going through this auction process. Yep.
Correct.
Right. And so why don't we go through this process? Because the process is actually quite unique, and it's important people understand it, because it's actually quite fair process, right? Like, and as you said, right, Aztec is one of the companies that actually raised $60 million, roughly $60 million last year, right? Through this process.
On a CCA auction, on a ZAP auction, tokens are distributed. So of that 500 million that you mentioned, or up to 500 million, however much the total ends up as, they're distributed on a per block basis during the auction. So over a long period of time, you can't just buy all 500 million on the first block. And obviously you can't just wait until the last block and buy that 500 million. So there's a set amount per block that actually is available to purchase. And people make bids, kind of like you would on eBay or something. You go in and you say, hey, here's the maximum price I want to pay per token. And during that block time, if you're one of those people who have a higher bid price than the current clearing price, you receive tokens during that block cycle. And that continues every block.
Right.
And everyone pays the same clearing price at the end. So this is the key benefits here is like it's really hard to, it's impossible to snipe essentially like you do on AMMs. No gas wars, no MEV front running. Front running, that's like one of the worst thing which happened to anyone who ever participated in traditional on-chain token launches. So for us, it was just, ticked all boxes.
Right. I see. Hasn't been used a lot of times. It's a relatively new process, I would say.
Yeah, very.
Again, I'm not telling anyone to do anything. It's just we're discussing the process here, how the process works, which is, I think, Ashton, you actually really explained well, which is you just bridge your Kaspa, right, to ICAS. And then from there on, you start the auctioning of, how much you're willing to pay for these Igra tokens, right? You put quantity and the price you're willing to pay. From there on, the system decides per block, which is the key, right? I guess the question I wanted to ask you is how many tokens will be released per block?
That's a good question. I don't think I have a number. They're just distributed across the entire 7 days the auction runs. So
exactly.
I mean, we could figure it out with some math. They're all equal per block, but I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Right.
1 block per second, then 7 days, and then you just it's continuous streaming of tokens.
Right. So if I say I want to buy 100,000 tokens, then I bid a price to it, right? And then all the system is doing is basically choosing the second highest bidder and deciding that's the price of the token. So is the price of the second highest bid as the fair price?
No, it's not. It's not based on those bid comparisons like that. So what it is based on the demand compared to how much token is released per block. So the CCA smart contract is actually determining the ratio of demand per available Igra in that block, and that's what's causing the increase in price. There's also one small edit I want to make to your statement. You never put in how much Igra you want to buy in your bid. You're putting in two pieces of information. How much am I willing to pay at the maximum per Igra, and how much ICAS am I willing to spend in maximum over the course of the whole auction?
I see.
So how much you get is actually a product of that supply and demand price ratio that happens per block.
Right. I get it. So I'm not directly telling you how many tokens I'm willing to buy.
Yeah, the input is really how much do you want to spend, both per Igra and in total, not how much do you want to get.
Right. Okay. I don't know if you have more information on this, because I'm sure people will be interested in knowing how the price is determined, right? Because I'm not entirely sure how it's decided, the price.
Yeah, there's good documentation.
Right.
Yeah, Uniswap CCA documentation is pretty robust, and ZealotSwap has done a really good job of creating theirs as well. But a good way to think about it is it's kind of the inverse of what you said before. You mentioned this hypothesis that it's the second highest bid that causes the price. I think in a really kind of layman's terms understanding, it's really the opposite. It's the lowest bid that can be included based on demand. So when the demand exceeds the available supply, we start moving up in price to remove demand. It's not top down that way. So your high bids are safe. You could bid a million per Igra. You're never going to get there because the demand isn't going to force it that high.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'll take this opportunity. So if I'm bidding, I want to buy 100,000, as I said, right? I'm bidding 10 cents, for example. I don't know what the price will be. I'm just guessing here, right? I'm bidding 10 cents. Pavel is really keen to buy some as well. Pavel goes out and says, I want 100,000 as well. But he bids 5 cents. So I'm bidding 10 cents. He's bidding 5 cents. What is the fair price that's going to be decided on this auction round for this block?
5 cents. And you will be cleared at 5 cents as well.
Okay. That is the thing I said, then the highest second bid. No, that was the highest second bid, 5 cents.
No, you said when you have
in
two
your example,
bids,
that's
essentially
true.
minimum, minimum bid is the second highest. It's like the marathon. I was second, but you were last because there were 2 people. So
yeah, exactly. So the easy way to think about it is if you've got 5 of these bids in your example, it's going to be the lowest that still can support that supply. It's not going to be the second highest. It just happened in our example to be that way.
Right.
That's a beauty of it. in traditional AMM, you want to pay high price, then you move like the whole, and you pay a lot. You put lots of liquidity. You shake the whole market up. You push it up, and here it won't happen. You will be cleared at the same price as everybody else. So you will pay less.
Yeah.
And we should make clear that same price clearing is within each block window. So
Yes.
over the course of the auction, you will pay different amounts if your bid persists. And of course, people at certain times will pay different amounts if they weren't available at the beginning or something. But in a block window, everyone pays the exact same.
That's clear, I think. And it's great to discuss that, but I want to again highlight that it's, obviously do your own research, do your own due diligence, obviously, when you're actually looking at these things, but understand how the system and the process works. So guys, anything on the Zap side that we haven't touched upon?
I've got two things. I don't know if you have anything to add, Pavel.
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
But yeah,
so two things on Zap that I think are important to mention for the community is one, when you're putting in your bid, you're doing it for the course of the entire auction. So there is no canceling a bid once you set it up on Zap, right? You're going to actually provide the entirety of the ICAS that you're willing to spend. So if you say, hey, I want to spend 1,000 ICAS, that 1,000 is moving into the Zap contract and going to be held until the end. If the Zap contract uses all that ICAS, like you successfully clear everything, you won't get any back. You'll just get the tokens. If it doesn't and you have remainder, you'll get it at the end.
Right.
Also, the second thing that's important is it's a claim-based process. So don't think that you'll just automatically see distribution of tokens at the end. You do need to come back at the end of the auction and come claim any remaining ICAS you have and the tokens to essentially instigate the contract to send it to you. It's a pull method, not a push. So it's important to pay attention to the end.
Yeah, no, I think those are very important bits you just mentioned towards the end. I think it's important for people to know the entire process. And obviously, if they want to cancel that during the process, they will not be able to do it, which is important to mention.
Correct. But you can make multiple bids. So if you're a prudent individual, it's like, hey, I don't want to put myself in a situation where I may want to cancel and change my mind. You can make smaller bids. You can make numerous bids from the same wallet, same user.
So Pavel, like, do you have a amount that you're looking to raise? Like, how you're thinking about this process? Like, what was going on when you guys sort of went through this process of fundraising and decided on this process?
Well, we had some simple math about fully diluted value, obviously, and company valuation.
Yeah.
So this is so we're currently looking at 60 mil of FDV. So then, if you derive from it, then it's up to 3 mil. That's the amount. That's the hard cap.
3 mil, right? So this is the 5% of your tokens, right? 500 million, right? So that's I see. So you're putting up for auction this 5% of the tokens, and then obviously with being able to raise some money, 3 million, you're saying, right? Around that number. Yeah.
That's more or less the ballpark. We might reduce the number of tokens we release, but yeah, that's
I see.
like
Up to 500.
Up to 500.
I see. Now it's clear why you're saying up to, because then you have the flexibility to move things around. Yeah.
And the auction has it has a minimum that you've got to meet too. So you wouldn't want to set the minimum threshold of the auction to your maximum raise. It's the highest risk that the auction never happens and it fails, right? So the auction itself will determine how many actually get sold.
Of course, that makes sense. So all right, let's assume we've got this auction cleared. It's how long is it running for, by the way?
7 days.
7 days, right? Cool. What is the plan for Igra token now? Because I'm sure people that are, attesters and obviously people that are coming in, what are they going to see? Centralized listings coming up? More DEX pools? What's the plans?
Yeah, of course. Simply put, yes, the DEX, we happy to have Zero Swap helping us, and they will be the first who will see the liquidity pool on Igra. With Igra. So that's the first on-chain market, unlimited. And then, yeah, we have several listings in mind. It's mostly operations game, and this is not always easy to decide what's like what we do first and what we do second. And currently, again, we're super focused on making sure that infrastructure works. Listings is lots of things which not related directly to the deep tech, which is our
No.
thing. So to put it simple, yes, we have several listings. We're in deep discussions with Mexi. We also had a good conversation with Ascendex, and yeah, that's going to happen. Watch the space for specifics.
Yeah, only thing I'll add is that I don't even think Pavel's fully aware of this, to be quite frank. I'm telling him for the first time on this podcast. But I've got active conversations with 4 other exchanges, some of which are 2 of which are names that I think people would really be excited to see. So just last night I was putting in, filling out a form of the network information and getting them everything they need. So I think it'll happen in due time, and we're well prepared for being able to execute on it quickly when that time comes.
Right. So let me put it straight to you. Given you build up so much, Ashton, is it Binance?
No, of course not. Of course not.
No, not touching those really. Just
yeah,
we cannot risk this. The community won't forgive us for that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's a lot of heated emotions there recently.
Yeah. There's a lot of back and forth on, for many years, right? At least as long as I've been on XXIM, I think I've seen Binance discussions that's come up within the Kaspa community. So I just wanted to make sure that's cleared off, that it's not Binance. So that thank you for that part, so that there are no speculations happening. People are not just making shit up. So that's cool. All right, guys. I think I do have one big important wrap-up question which I want to get into. But before we get into that part, anything we missed so far on the ecosystem, on infrastructure? Of course, this episode is not focused on deep tech. I wanted to keep it high level. So anything we missed so far?
I think I haven't had an opportunity just to say that I'm so enjoying working with Ashton. Like, this guy is powerhouse, and he made a huge difference for Igra, and he's as a really genuine interest of Kaspa in mind. That's very important, because like we sometimes feel a little bit disconnected from the bigger world, just heads down, and Ashton connecting us with like many teams, projects. It's been really a huge boost. And if you guys have anything in mind, if you want to build on Igra, if you have big plans or small plans, please talk to Ashton and he will get you sorted.
It's really nice. I appreciate the kind words, Pavel. I didn't expect to have to hold back blushing on this podcast. But I appreciate you. And I will say that there's a lot of things that happen in the background that aren't obvious, right? We talk a lot about like DeFi and retail facing protocols, but I'm talking with institutional custody providers and professional RPC services, and arbitrage DeFi that allows kind of consistent market reliability as integration partners. Hardware wallets is another. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to impact this. So like Pavel said, if you have interest or you see Igra, and I'm happy to assist in any way I can.
Beautifully put, both of you guys. I feel this episode, I'm not just discussing a layer 2, I'm discussing the entire Kaspa ecosystem. It feels like that. I wanted to have this question, and I wanted to keep it towards the end, right? So let me ask you this, Pavel, specifically to you, right? So typically framing of this question would be done through the lens of layer 1 perspective, right? Like layer 1 is the most important thing. But I wanna flip it a little bit today. I wanted to say layer 2 typically brings adoption. Perhaps, adoption drives innovation for layer 1. So I wanted to perhaps ask you this thing, which is how Igra is pushing Kaspa forward.
Oh, you just said that in these exact words. It's about adoption. It's about bringing adoption to the Kaspa ecosystem, which, to my opinion, is lacking. Like, we see ourselves as a catalyst for the ecosystem growth. And that's already happening. You can see how many projects actually building on Igra, and like some of them working in the shadows under the radar. I know several teams who want to appear once the whole thing will stabilize. Obviously, many things they just don't like publicity, but there are serious builders and they have lots of experience, and I'm really glad these people start looking at Kaspa. And I think what is we can do is maybe similar to what Paradigm did with the Ethereum ecosystem. You need software companies which actually build products, not just infrastructure. Our focus is product and business. That's what we doing, and that's where our expertise is. So we're trying to expand to explain Kaspa to external world, not in speed properties or some other technical properties. We try to explain why is it great infrastructure for their products, and it works. If we combine these things together, that's exactly the missing ingredients. Like you need programmability, you need decentralized programmability on Kaspa to make the whole thing work. And I hope that our contribution won't be limited only to building programmability, building only execution client on top of Kaspa. Specific example, we're going to publish very soon the research paper, some kind of yellow paper for the bridging between Kaspa and other layer 1 blockchains, including Bitcoin. Like it's a protocol for threshold signing. It's created by one of our excellent researchers and co-founders, Roman Melnikov. And this is, I think, this piece of research should be super important for Kaspa ecosystem, because from our first-hand experience, bridging or even multi-signing experience in Kaspa is really superior to other ecosystems. And it's one of the most important parts. I think it was mentioned several times in several places that if we want big world institutions to look at Kaspa, especially as custodians, for example, we need to have this basic infrastructure. Like multi-sig address cannot be designed like it was in Bitcoin in 2015. And unfortunately, in Kaspa, it's exactly what's currently happening. I can see many people in Kaspa core team working on excellent improvements, optimizations. vProx is really cool tech. But then there are some also building blocks which needs to be there if we want, again, people to build products on Kaspa, not just enjoying it from its speed. Because, yeah, speed is good, but it's nothing without specific implementations. It's nothing without product market fit. So that's our mission, to expand the ecosystem, to bring product market fit to Kaspa.
I wanted to add perhaps, my own thoughts, which is, rollups like on Ethereum, right? We've seen this, right? With Arbitrum, Optimism Base, so many layer 2s that brought scalability, that helped lower fees, that drove real adoption, right? Which in return actually helped Ethereum to really become more of a less expensive settlement layer, right? In this thriving ecosystem. So really, that's what I expect from layer 2s to do, right? And of course, once vProgs and covenants are out, I think they'll create their own ecosystems, right? And I think that's what perhaps I expect from layer 2s, and not just Igra. Obviously, we're discussing today Igra, but even Casplex is doing their part, right?
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you guys said it both great. And to your point, Ankit, in Ethereum, you did have a fee problem and you did have a scalability problem. And that's kind of where these bundled optimistic rollups, like you mentioned, make sense. And they help, even though there is some kind of parasitic nature. But with Kaspa, we already have the ultimate sequencing layer, right? We already have low fees. We already have scalability on the layer 1. What we didn't have was approachability. We had novel tech that was hard to build on and something you needed to learn from scratch. And what Igra does is take the Kaspa layer 1 through its base rollup architecture and make it approachable for any institution or builder or DeFi project that already builds on EVM. They're already familiar with Solidity. They already understand EVM opcodes and RPC calls. And what we're really trying to do, I think, is make Kaspa turnkey for anyone that's already in crypto, be that, a human builder team or agent.